morning, everyone. I'm Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company based in New Prague, Minnesota. I'm also the host of Ask a Painter Live, a live show on Facebook every Friday morning where I use my 2 decades of painting, restoration, wood finishing experience, and experience as a craftsman to answer all your painting and finishing questions. This week, obviously, I am not in Minnesota. I am live here from Upper Captiva Island, or North Captiva Island, on the last day or two of my family's vacation up here. So I thought I'd take this time to go over some coastal specific painting questions, especially on the southwest coast here. A couple years ago, I came to the island and fell in love with the place and met a whole bunch of local people here. And I actually traveled here to do some painting for one of the homeowners. And I actually ran into one of the homeowners last night and said the painting was holding up. So I think whatever I did down here was working out pretty good. So in my Instagram feed, in my Facebook feed, I put a couple pictures of the projects that I completed down here. Mainly decks, deck spindles, dual posts, architectural things like that. So I'll be referencing those during the live feed. I also posted a picture of the house I'm staying in, has one of the Redeck, Deck Restore, it goes by about 6 different named products. The 4 times thicker elastomeric gritty coating that you actually use a putty knife or a thick roller to roll on your decks. And I'll be going over some of that stuff here, and I'll be taking any of your questions live. First of all, some coastal specific painting issues. Number one, at least to me, when I got down here, was salt. There's a whole bunch of salt air, salt mist, especially when you're this close to the ocean. The biggest thing you want to do down here is get that stuff washed or scrubbed off. Up north, we have a lot of block foundations, concrete foundations that go into the ground. Here, not so much, but up north we have this white powdery substance called efflorescence that leaches out of that bricks, and it's carried by water. And efflorescence is actually a salt. It's a white powdery substance like this. Completely destroys paint. You can tell on foundations, anywhere where there's a big bubble, if you usually scrape it off in the Midwest, there's this white powdery substance there, and that's called efflorescence. So, knowing that, coming down here, I knew that salt was a huge enemy of coatings, especially if they're between 2 layers or something, something like that. You're not going to have the basement efflorescent leaching issues so much down here, but if your whole house is coated with a fine layer of salt, to me, that doesn't seem like a very good substrate to paint on. So, pressure washing is a must. Scrubbing, mildew is also an issue down here too. If you see on the north sides of some homes or homes that are very shaded, you're going to get some of that green and black mildew growing on there too. So, and that's a definite. I mean, that even happens in the Midwest when there's not a lot of air movement. So, I mean, the biggest things that I can see down here to fix that stuff: number one, get the air moving. Number two, use that solution of bleach, TSP, and water, and treat it and scrub it. One of the homeowners I actually ran into here last night, he owns a couple houses on the island here. He's a furniture maker as well, and he said that he actually restored a little bit of his outdoor furniture and his deck using that mixture that I profiled in one of my first Ask a Painters that I did about decks, that homemade solution of stuff like that. So it was good to hear that, and it's good to see that stuff's being put to use. So once you get the salt off, once you get the mildew off, you're ready to paint. When I got down here, normally, this was a couple years ago, most of the houses I painted use either, Sherwin-Williams Duration, Benjamin Moore Aura, super high-end exterior paint. We have a lot of peeling, a lot of natural wood up north, so a lot of times we'll use a flat paint to hide a lot of the flaws in the house. When I got down here and I asked for some flat paint for a few of my projects, a couple of the guys looked cross-eyed at me. They had to go to a couple stores to get it. Almost everything down here has shine, and with good reason. After doing some of my research down here, I find that people pressure wash the heck out of stuff, mainly to get the mildew, the salt air, and just the daily grime of the south and the heat and humidity off of it all. So, using a shinier paint, a satin, an eggshell, a low luster, or something, will do you a lot of favors when you go back to try to scrub or something like that. Another specific thing that I've noticed down here is that there is very little clear or cedar or wood tone finishes used in architectural areas here, especially when you look at decks, porches, other things like that. maybe it's aesthetics. You see a little bit down here, but I have a feeling it has to do with a lot of mold issues. The salt also being able to wash it, and also just getting out here. I mean, there's no road to the place where I'm sitting right now, so you either have to take a boat or a plane out here. And I imagine, you know, with a lot of those clear cedar coatings, you got to coat them every year. It'd be pretty tough to maintain everything on these houses, especially when you have like a 4-level house and they have 4 wraparound decks. You could spend a lot of the summer as a homeowner just coating your decks with that cedar stuff. So some of the smarter things I've seen out here are just natural treated pine or other woods down here, just left natural. It weathers to that nice kind of gray. Once that green of the treated kind of comes out of it, and you know, it goes to a nice gray, and that's perfectly maintenance free. Some of the things that I've seen last the longest here, I think we've been coming 7 or 8 years here. Some of the things that I've seen last the longest are thicker lumber as well, and I think those have a tendency to hold coatings, at least in the coastal regions, better than the thin stuff. Up north we have 3/4 or 5/4 boards up north, which would be a little bit thicker. You know, they hold their coatings pretty well with good maintenance, but down here the coatings that I've seen last the longest tend to be the thicker, the 2x stock, where they're actually 2 inches thick, maybe 3 inches wide, or even 4 inches wide like that. They seem to be more stable, less moisture, you know, moving through it as the temperature and humidity changes. So yeah, that's and those left natural, again, those are a perfect substrate. For some people, they like to coat them with something. Paint, not a great option down here, especially because all the homes are lifted on stilts. You're going to get a lot of that migration of moisture through there, and it'll probably peel. People use various deck stains and stuff like this down here, and just like everything else, if it's maintained well, I think it'll do well. But you really got to stick up with that stuff. Another thing that I see down here, which surprises me, a couple of things that surprise me, is the paint doesn't seem to fade as much as up north. Now, color has something to do with it. Up north, we use very rich, very deep, very earthy colors. Down here, things are a little more jewel tone, a little more pastel. That does have something to do with it. But even on some of the houses that have, you know, a little bit richer color, for some unknown reason to me, coming here over the years, it doesn't seem like they fade a whole lot. And you know, we take pictures of a lot of the houses every year to sort of chronicle things that go on. My wife and I are a lover of home, and we've sort of kept an eye on a lot of this paint, and it doesn't seem, you know, especially the house next to ours on the bay side, it doesn't seem like the house has been painted since we've been coming here, and the paint looks great. So I think guys are, and it is hardy board, which takes its first coat of paint beautifully, but I think it has something to do with using a good paint first. With the temperature high here, the humidity high, with the storms, with the salt, to me that's a perfect way, you know, recipe for sort of early fading and things like that. But it seems to hold up pretty well here. So you know, the people down here on the island must know what they're doing fairly well, and yeah, it seems to be good. So I'm check my notes here, see if there's anything else I wanted to go over. Temperature and humidity too. A lot of the paints and the technical data sheets are rated for a certain temperature, certain humidity. It seems to me like a lot of the afternoons here might be a little tough on paint, but most of the stuff, as long as you're doing a good clean substrate and you're putting it on in the recommended way, it seems to hold up here. So most people work right through. I asked a bunch of contractors here how they deal with, you know, the afternoon heat, humidity, and most of them just say, you know, you just do it. It is what it is. And there's the typical sort of Florida scattered rain shower every day here and there, most of the times in the afternoon, late afternoon. And I think this is where you know, proper planning comes into play. You know, getting on a side of the house where you know the paint is going to set up well, be tack free before the rain comes, or at least painting in sheltered areas an hour or two before the storm, so that stuff has time to tack up. There's also products like Sherwin-Williams Resilience, which is a paint specifically made for setting up twice as fast as a normal paint. So when either dew comes or rain comes, it has a less tendency to mar from or make marks from raindrops and things like that. I guess another issue is caulking, especially on the siding of these houses. It seems like everybody understands down here that getting a weather-tight 100% perfectly sealed membrane is sort of the key to making all this siding, all this trim, and other things last. A couple of the older homes down here have wood construction, things like that. It seems like everything is sort of going to Hardie board. I would say 80 to 90% of what is built here on the island is James Hardie. The rest of it, you see a mix of vinyl and some other stuff. I have not seen LP siding down here. I don't know if that's a regional issue. I don't know if that's a specific choice. If I run into another builder here, I will ask them. But you do see a little bit of vinyl yet here too. Almost everything is either a flat roof, a membrane roof, steel. There is a little bit of shingles that you see now and again, but I would imagine that there has to be something specific done to that to keep the storms out. Rust stains as well. With the salt air, things oxidize, things rust very quickly here. So all these houses are lifted up on stilts, some of them 2 or 3 stories up before they start building, and there's a lot of the metal connectors. Some people choose to paint the underpinnings, some don't. If you're going to paint that stuff, I would certainly wire brush that stuff. Use I chronicled this in a Ask a Painter a couple issues ago, a rust reformer if it's got a lot of rust, but I would certainly give yourself the best head start here, and I would mechanically remove with a brass brush or a wire brush all that rust and get some good oil primer on it, something like that to seal it up, and then just keep the water out of it. Touch those rust spots up every year and just keep the water from infiltrating, that sort of thing there. The other biggest surprise for me down here is the proliferation of sort of redeck, deck restore. Every manufacturer has one now. The thinking is, instead of a clear stain, if your deck is very badly worn, that obviously will not do a lot for you. There's solid stains, which sort of act as a painted coating, and a lot of times, if those aren't well maintained, those will peel as well. So then, almost every manufacturer now has an option for you to basically just cover your deck with this rubberized, thick, elastomeric, gritty coating. Every manufacturer has a version of it. Some are a little bit thinner and more paint-like. Some are so thick you basically use a trowel to put this stuff on, and you actually have to, there's videos out there where you can watch, and you actually have to specifically get it into the grooves, into all this and that, and there's it seems like an easy thing, and as soon as you're done, it looks great. The problem is that it's the prep. A lot of these companies, if you read the technical data sheets on them, they want you to basically either strip everything down to bare wood, either by chemical or mechanical sanding, or completely get everything you can off and prime the deck, and then 2 coats of this sort of product. Now, like I said, every manufacturer has a sort of different thing. Some of them have a gritty, rubberized elastomeric coating and then a top coat. Some of them just have a 2-coat process. Some of them have a 1-coat process where you just layer it on as thick as you can. From what I've seen, it's a very difficult product to use to get even, so you gotta do a little practice area somewhere. In the Midwest, I should be perfectly honest with you, I am completely morally opposed to using these products just from the decks I've seen. A couple of my homeowners have done this, and 6 months later, the stuff just comes up in sheets. At least in the Midwest, it's a horrible product when not used correctly. I have yet to see a perfect application of something like this. Now, surprisingly, down here, the coatings last longer on these substrates. Now, the coatings that I've seen, these sort of deck restore, redeck products down here, they've been on thicker, treated dimensional lumber. So like I was saying, the 2-inch by 3 or 4 inch versus the 3/4 inch or the 5/4 back home. So maybe the stability of that has something to do with it. A lot of the products I've seen too are deep into the screened-in porches, shaded areas, areas under awnings. I have yet to see a dock be done with this down here. A lot of the docks are made with either that very thick dimensional treated lumber, or they're done with the composite deck materials. Those surprisingly do well down here. I think they have a bunch of good examples of that. But down here, even in the house I'm staying at, they had the process done a couple years ago. Looks pretty good. There's still some chips in the floor, things like that. So I think with normal wear and tear, you can only hope for so much in a process like that. I think where they used it in my house, in this very deep, maybe 15-foot deep covered porch, a walkway along the house on a raised level, all under an awning, and then stairs down, all covered, tree shaded. Very little water actually hits this stuff, and sun definitely doesn't hit it, and I think that's a good place where you can use it. Now, I think in the case of my house, it must have been aesthetics only, because the decks were in great shape, and in fact, most of it was that bare-treated lumber that held up pretty well, and I think people just wanted a different look. So I think that's a good application for it, and surprisingly, like I said, the examples I've seen down here, it lasts a lot longer than it does in the Midwest. So maybe it's our winters, maybe it's our cool humidity versus the hot humidity here. Maybe it's just the general environment, but the decks I've seen just really don't last in the Midwest. So I'm not a fan. I won't use it professionally, but I certainly understand it has its merits in certain regions, and you know, I usually advise my customers not to do that. So take a quick minute here, scroll through, see what we got. Any specific questions here? Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you guys for watching today. I'm going to get back to the family here. All of these videos will be archived on my YouTube page. Search for Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration, Ask a Painter. They will be archived on my Facebook page, my home Facebook page. And thanks for everybody for following along. And the redeck, examples of the redeck on the own home I stay here. I have a picture of that put up, and I have a picture of a couple of the painting projects I did here. So if any of you guys have any specific painting questions at the coast, or if any of you painters who live on the coast want to chime in and give me some sort of tips and tricks that I maybe overlooked or are specific here that I wouldn't know about, definitely let me know. Send your questions during the live feed, send your questions during the week. And if you guys have a specific topic that you want covered, send it to me. If it's something that I don't have a lot of examples of, I will research it for you and do that. Otherwise, I'll dig through my digital archive of project pictures, and we will make a topic, and I will cover it in depth in one of these. So, thank you guys from North Captiva Island here. Have a good week, and we'll see you next Friday.